everyone, and welcome to our special investor relations segment called Conversations with CEOs. I'm Cara Wood, and today we have a unique opportunity to dive deep into the world of gold mining with Element 79 Gold Corp. This company has been making waves in the industry with its innovative approach to cash flow and resource management. Joining us today is the CEO of Element 79 Gold Corp, James Tworek. We'll be discussing his strategic vision and exciting milestones ahead and the company's journey towards becoming a major player in the gold mining sector. Let's get started with this insightful conversation. Okay, so I'm going to start with a bit about your personal journey. So I was wondering if you could share with us your journey of becoming a CEO, and specifically the CEO of Element 79 Gold Corp.
Sure, thank you. This road has been many years building in terms of, number one, starting in a career as a banker. And through that, I earned a lot of the accreditations, financial planning, stock, bond, mutual fund trading, et cetera, that really set the foundation for my understanding of the capital markets and my desire to continue working in them. That was a 7.5-year stint where it was really a self-made co-op through university. An interesting aspect is that I did start in a finance and econ economics double major when I was in university. And then I actually faded out with a business minor and a major in Latin American studies. So one of the unique aspects of where we are now today, fast forward from graduating in 2003, 21 years, it's kind of funny that, thoughts become things. I manifested way back then that I wanted to work in Latin America, and here we are. It's actually really kind of a neat coalescence of where I've been and where I'm going.
Interesting. How many years have you been the CEO of Element 79?
Since the pre-IPO days. The company itself was formed in 2020, but the brainchild was formed more like 2018. And so it was about end of 2019 that I started as the CEO and started building what it was at that point. With some other, everything from the founding investors to the original CFO of the company, and preparing things down the path towards the actual IPO process, which is really interesting. We did a direct listing, so we didn't take over a shell. Let's just say that it's an ever-shifting sand under your feet in terms of sometimes regulatory or process. So you can set plans for timing, but it doesn't necessarily always happen the way you want it to.
Well, with these challenges, what keeps you motivated in the role?
Truthfully, on one hand, I'll quickly say that once upon a time I read an article about a study on rats about pain thresholds, and redheads, as you might see, have a red beard. Redheads have the highest pain threshold of them all. So that might be part of it. But at the same time, the reality is that it's a really exciting journey. I work with some really interesting people, and more than just working on a cool project, I actually have a really neat team to work with, great brain power, awesome experiences, and they themselves are motivating to me. And at the same time, being the de facto lead, although I consider myself equal with all of them, as teammates by being the CEO, I know that the responsibility is on my shoulders, not just to raise the money to keep the projects going, but also to to fuel the team and keep their own motivation installed and focused on where we're going.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned IPO and IPO challenges. The early years as a public company can always prove quite challenging, and I'm sure it proved quite challenging for Element 79. What were some of the significant obstacles that you faced, and how did you overcome those?
Truthfully, gratefully, by the time that everything was set in place, it wasn't a concern of the financing that we had at our back or available to us, upon the IPO and trajectory therefrom. But really, one of the biggest stumbling blocks that drew a lot of time was that we had our director, Neil Pettigrew. He runs a geological consultancy based out of Thunder Bay. It's called Fladgate Exploration. And they were the ones that had done the original 43-101 report. And while that's not a problem by any stretch, the issue became that he, while the head of that consultancy, therefore it looked like it was, a concern of conflict of interest when he became a director. So strategically speaking, were we to ever bring him on and we were to do this again in the exact same fashion, we would think twice about bringing him on prior to the IPO and maybe bring him in after the fact because of that simple concern. That one process, I want to say, obviously cost additional fees. Can't remember the dollar amount, but we had to have the report rewritten. And therefore, that caused a delay of something like 5 or 6 months in the whole process. So in that sense, we did miss part of the wave of how exciting the markets were at that time due to that, I guess we'll say technical delay.
Interesting. Well, this probably rolls then into company vision a little bit because Element 79 Gold Corp seems to have a unique focus on cash flow first, with development and resource expansion second. So can you elaborate on why this strategy was chosen and how it might set you apart from other junior miners?
Well, first and foremost, I come from a banking background. All of the, different banking books, all the investments, venture capital investments I've made have been in near-term or existing cash flow businesses. A lot of the mentors that I've had over the years, were about acquiring a business and, turning it from this level to this level. And even more so after I left the banking career after 7.5 years, I had joined a mortgage brokerage that actually had a development fund that was focused primarily on real estate. But I cut my teeth into project finance at that level. Mm-hmm. And similar to a lot of venture capital or similar to private equity, depending on the size of the deal, you take a company from here, you put in, I like to sprinkle in some high cost debt or some risk capital in the middle. And then from there, you've leveled up the company from a level 1 to a level 3. Now it's a calculated risk. You have to, look at your exits. You have to trust your counterparties, and you have to understand the market, macro and micro, to make sure that you're confident in making those moves. But we've taken that same approach here inside Element 79, where it's very difficult. And I have a huge amount of respect for explorers. I mean, the mining industry exists because of exploration. But it's a brutal business. I would argue that the vast majority of the miners that I've known in the past and or that I've met at conferences, et cetera, they're able to do it because they have a day job. They're able to do it because they can fund their personal exploits from another source of cash flow or revenue. It's very difficult to run a company like a mining company where you have to raise your money, invest, drill, hope that you hit something, based on your best educated guess, and then based on that, if the market cycle's fair to you and the resource cycle is fair to you, or commodity cycle is fair to you, then you're able to raise more money and do it again. But that's,
you have to have an appetite for risk.
Yeah.
But, the highs are high and the lows can be low. But that leads me to, your 2024 milestones. So 2024 is positioned to be a turnaround year for Element 79. What are your key milestones that you're going to target for this year? Within reason, and how do they align with your long-term goals?
Realistically, there's many, and I'll say that there's two major ones when it comes to looking at our flagship project, Lucero. Yes. I break the project down into two different categories, and one is specifically that it's a community project just as much as it is a mining project. And truthfully, the mining project, much like you might have read or heard in a lot of other jurisdictions, mining projects don't go anywhere unless you have a favorable, relationship and contract with the community. And in that, the local Chachas community, we're waiting for them to ratify their in-house charter. They brought in a new mayor in January, and as they go through the process of ratifying their charter amongst themselves as a community, until that's done, they can't sign off on the approval of our contract for surface right access so we can get back to the mine. Mm-hmm. So that's a major milestone right there. We're expecting that to occur somewhere between now and the end of July. We've been told it is no more than 90 days from April 28th when they had their last annual general meeting. And so we're definitely all eyes focused on that, as well as we have our community relations team that has been there for the last approximately 18 months, working there on a methodical basis, ensuring that we have a positive rapport with the community, that we're normalized there. We actually just opened up a social development office in town back in February. So that's a major milestone for us, and that really kicks off everything down there. Along with that, a second milestone is that the second half of that one contract is that we also end up approving the local artisanal miners group called Lomas Doradas. That group ends up being able to work at the project as well. So as they approve us for 10 years of surface rights, we approve them for 10 years of access to the mine to continue their artisanal mining. One of the interesting aspects of that, and the final details are yet to be written, but we've provided draft contracts to this effect. And we're waiting for them in the signing of that. They also end up wholesaling their product to us, and we end up bringing that to market for them. Doesn't mean I take physical possession of it, but we get to direct where it goes. And that becomes a small, but a first step towards generating revenue as a company. So that's, I would call it another major inflection point in where we're going. We are looking at some institutional financing, and we have a couple groups right now in, we'll say the data rooms in terms of funding the next big phase of both drilling as well as creating a PEA and a mine plan, which we expect to be funded here approximately mid-year, June, July, to be able to move on down the path of drilling and proving up a resource, and then proving a PEA, as well as a mine plan for commercial production. Other items that we're looking at are other regional M&A opportunities. There are some other cash flow or near-term cash flow assets that we are looking at, and that would also, again, just add to the overall value of where we're what we're creating at Lucero, and just help everything grow that much faster.
So you have been strategically developing and divesting properties. Can you discuss the rationale behind narrowing your portfolio and how it aligns with your overall strategy?
Sure thing. So really quickly, Element 79 in its first iteration, the business plan was to grow by acquisition. And we did very successfully at that. We grew from 1 to 20 projects within basically about 18 months. And from there, we were chasing a couple crown jewels, one of which was, Maverick Springs, which is a project that we just ended up selling this month. So we bought low, added some value, and sold for a profit. It's fantastic, and that was the true goal. Some of the portfolio that we acquired, it was kind of an all or nothing deal going from Maverick Springs. Some of it, we did stratify it and say, here's the best, and worked our way down. We have sold in a few of them in terms of just not renewing the mineral leases, as well as ultimately just keep the best to the best. And I mean, if you and I had 5 minutes, 20 minutes to talk about anything, I can't tell you about 20 properties. Okay.
Sure. Well,
so the reality is, focus is for two things. One is to be able to talk coherently about something without, losing anyone's train of thought.
Yes, exactly. And I'm sure our viewers will appreciate that. So we have a couple of minutes left because I do want to keep this just to 20 minutes. And then if we get a lot of great feedback and viewers want to dive a little bit deeper, we can do this again. So I just want to talk about the company's financial health a little bit. The company recently completed a significant debt restructuring and raised funds through private placement. How do you feel these financial moves position Element 79 for future growth?
It did a couple of things. Number one, it helped. We had a lot of, in our former structure, a lot of dilution. And we tightened that up. Through that dilution, we were seeing a lot of abusive trading in the markets, which you may have heard, from the Safe Canadian Mining Group or others talking about hostile trading out there. Number one, it helped kind of quell that by putting the shares into the hands of more strategic holders. In addition to that, with the capital raises that we brought in, that also brought in some strategic, big picture, long-term thinkers that want to see us grow. And ultimately, also through the sale of Maverick Springs, we've been able to clean up the balance sheet. So first we did the share consolidation, and then we took some debt, bolted that back in, so the share structure grew. But ultimately, it puts us in a very strong position with a group of cheerleaders and heavily concentrated owners that want to see this company grow into ideally, I would like to say, multi-dollar stock.
Great strategic moves. So yeah, with gold prices at historic highs, how do you see the current market conditions affecting Element 79's operations and strategy?
I think that it's going to do two main things. One is that it's going to facilitate capital for the expansion of where we're growing in terms of being able to bring actual production to market. We are seeing some great results from speaking to institutional investors about that. And that's a general sentiment we're feeling and seeing. In addition, I think it's going to drive investors back into the precious metal space, or at least the mining sector as a whole, as alternatives are created, other sectors start dwindling. So it's definitely starting to bring back a little bit of lifeblood into the industry for a whole.
Well, James, thank you so much for discussing your strategic vision, the exciting milestones that are coming ahead, and the exciting piece that this company's journey towards becoming a major player in the gold mining sector is under your leadership. Thank you very much for this insightful conversation.
I definitely appreciate your time, and thanks for the opportunity. I look forward to speaking again as well.